Hello, my name is Leah Zurmehly, and I'm enrolled in the course SEC 352, Planning for Student Diversity for the Spring 2015 semester. Today, I will be analyzing the textbook titled Marketing Essentials produced by Glencoe. This textbook is meant to be used for a Principles of Marketing course designed for 9th graders. The textbook is specialized as the DECA Connection version. DECA, which is an association of marketing students, is the international student organization that allows students who are interested in marketing to compete at the regional, state, national, and international level. The organization is designed to allow students to explore careers related to marketing. The DECA Connection version of this textbook draws connections for the students that can help them with their DECA competitions. I have decided to analyze Unit 6 in this textbook, which focuses on promotion. There are 4 chapters in this unit that are each about 10 to 15 pages long. Within each chapter, there are 2 sections. The first day that I will be analyzing the text is based on 3 state standards. I have chosen to use the COSA standards, which stands for Kentucky Occupational Skills Standard Assessment. COSA is an assessment that is taken by seniors in a program where the COSA is available. COSA tests are available for most career and technical education career pathways, including marketing. If a student does well on the COSA, they are said to be career ready, technical portion of college, and career readiness in that career pathway. The first standard that I will be analyzing is the standard that states the text needs to identify the elements of the promotional mix. This is based on the concept that there are 4 areas a part of the promotional mix. These areas include advertising, publicity, sales promotion, and personal selling. In order to determine if the objective was met, I asked the question, what percentage of the chapter's objectives focus on one of the elements of the promotional mix? After collecting the data, I concluded that 69% of the objectives focused on at least one element of the promotional mix, and 31% did not focus directly on at least one element of the promotional mix. Therefore, this standard was met. The next standard that I focused on stated that the text should allow the students an opportunity to perform basic and higher level math operations. To see if the text met this standard, I asked the question, what percent of the questions under building skills involves mathematical skill development? I collected the data I needed to use to determine if the standard was met by counting how many of the building skills questions at the end of the chapter focused on developing math skills. In each of the chapters, there were 3 questions that were under the building skills area. In each chapter, one of the 3 questions focused on applying math skills to the topic in the chapter. Therefore, 33% of the questions developed math skills and 67 developed skills other than math. Because there was at least one math question in each chapter, I concluded that this standard was met. The last standard that I used to evaluate the text according to the COSA standards focused on helping students recognize the relationship between customer-client satisfaction and the company's success. In each of the material in the chapter, there is a real-world case study presented that talks about how the material in the chapter was being seen in the real world through the concepts and ideas being utilized by actual companies. In order to determine if the standard was met, I asked the question, how many of the chapter case studies focused on customer satisfaction? After collecting the data, I found that the case studies in 3 of the chapters, which included chapter 17, 18, and chapter 20, focused on customer satisfaction and its importance to the overall business's success. Based on this information, I concluded that this standard was met. So after completing an analysis of the textbook according to its ability to meet COSA standards, I would say that this textbook would be effective and appropriate to use in a Principles of Marketing course because it met all 3 of the selected COSA standards that I chose to evaluate. Another way that I will analyze the textbook Marketing Essentials is by examining 3 dimensions of diversity. The dimensions included geographical location, class, and gender. The first diversity dimension that I looked at was geographical location. In order to determine if the textbook represented a variety of geographical locations, I asked the question, To what degree are the global market inserts and other figures in the chapter representative of an array of geographical locations? I went through the chapters, and based on the assumption that the geographical locations were stated directly in the text, I determined that some continents were more represented than others throughout the text. Here's a world map that represents the geographical location represented throughout Unit 6. Each dot represents a location that was displayed throughout the readings. The number inside the dot represents how many times that this location was mentioned in the text. As you can see, there were some continents that had more representation than others. There were 4 continents that were represented and 3 that were not. One of these continents was Antarctica, which can be assumed that there's a low population on Antarctica, therefore it should not be represented. Based on the data I collected, I concluded that the textbook was representative of a wide variety of geographical locations, both within the United States and out. Many states were discussed throughout this unit, and more than half of the continents were represented. Therefore, this standard was met. The next aspect of diversity that I examined was class. I used the careers and marketing insert at the end of each chapter to examine class and how it was represented. I assumed that if the career highlighted had an average yearly salary of less than $30,000 a year, I assumed that this person was a part of the lower class. If the career highlighted had an annual salary between $30,000 and $100,000 a year, it could be assumed that this was a member of the middle class. And if the career had an annual salary of $100,000 or more, the individual could be assumed to be a part of the high class. After collecting the data, I concluded that the only class that was represented in this chapter, based on the average salaries for each of their professions, concluded that the middle class was the only class represented throughout the text. I compared the percentage of the 3 main social classes to the percentage of classes represented in the United States and found that the percentage were not comparable. This means that this textbook was not diverse in its representation of the 3 main social classes that exist currently in the United States. The last diversity dimension that I examined to analyze the text was the dimension of gender. In order to determine if an appropriate percentage of male and females were represented in the text of the United States population, I examined and counted the number of females and males shown in the graphic under the Decade Connection chapter at the end of the chapters. I made some assumptions about characteristics of females and males. A female was assumed to have longer hair, smaller frames, and distinct facial features. Males were assumed based on shorter hair, more broad body frames, and distinct facial features. In order to analyze the text according to gender representation, I asked the question, to what degree is an accurate representation of the U.S. populations of males and females presented in the text based on the number of males and females displayed in the Decade Connection section of the text that appears at the end of each chapter? After collecting the data, I found that in the text, 62% of the people represented were female and 38% were male. I compared this to the gender percentages in 2012 according to the U.S. Census and found that the percentage of males and females were not comparable to the United States population. Therefore, the text is not diverse based on the dimension of gender. It could be a possibility that the reason they are not the same as the U.S. population is that there are more females than males in the DECA organization. In conclusion, the textbook was not overall diverse based on the 3 dimensions that I chose to examine. It was diverse based on geographical cohesion, but was not diverse according to class and gender. The last way that I chose to analyze the text was using the Lexile score. This is a measurement tool designed to tell if a textbook is appropriate for a certain grade level. In order to determine the Lexile score for my textbook, I chose to type in 2 paragraphs from each chapter into the score analyzer on the Lexile score website. The text Marketing Essentials received a score of 960. The average score for a textbook for a 9th grade level is between an 855 and an 1165. This textbook would be appropriate for a course assuming that the student was not as English as a second language student and also was reading at their grade level. The score was on the lower end of the spectrum, which means that there could be some students who struggle reading this textbook if their reading skills are at or below 9th grade level. and here are my references.